I started off as an undergrad thinking about healthcare and had some professors that were super interested in healthcare and encouraged me to go on and get a PhD. And I'm a first generation college student, first in my family to get a college degree at all, and was suggested to me to go to graduate school, and I had no idea what PhD even stood for. And studied the economics background along with public health gave me the tools to start thinking about labor economics, health economics. How do I ask those questions in a really rigorous, data-driven sort of way? And I think informed by my background as a first-generation college student of the importance of work and being able to keep your job in order to have insurance, but also to pay bills. The importance of work also from an identity standpoint. And then cancer is such an important disease to study, highly prevalent, leading cause of mortality, and it's a disease you cannot ignore. I moved here about 8 years ago. Actually, when I was recruited here and into the Cancer Center, my son was finishing high school. And I went back and forth for a while until he got done, about a year and a half. And honestly, it's through the leadership training and observation and role models that I had through the Cancer Center to be in this role as dean now. We always talk about the challenges of being a first gen, of not knowing and how to navigate higher ed. The thing that is our advantage of being a first gen that we never talk about is the willingness to work hard and figure stuff out. And that is such a huge advantage. That I think we carry with us our whole careers. And it's important to mention that. In academia, there's no shortage of smart people, but people who are willing to work extremely hard and figure things out and tackle hard problems, that's a separating skill set. So for me, that willingness to work hard and figure out how to get the data I needed and not let barriers get in my way, I'd gotten that far, so I was willing to keep going, was an advantage of my background. And I would say the biggest challenges were just trying to figure out who the collaborators were going to be, how to build that team out and get people to work together and on board with the ideas. I think I would tell myself two things. One, don't worry quite as much. You're going to get funded. These things are going to work out for you. Solving problems will be a strength for you. Don't get too upset about that. And I think the second thing I would tell my former self is slow down and think through some decisions about building stronger teams. Don't try to do everything yourself. I think the dual whammy of being a first gen and a woman, we're programmed to do everything ourselves and not realize that we can build a team and train other people and what we know and build up. So I would focus on those two things. So I'm fairly athletic and I love to cycle and train for long rides and take a lot of cycling trips. I hike. I used to box all the time. So for me, it's just staying in shape and fit, and I'm usually training for a race or a ride or something. I absolutely loved boxing. I got into it after my dad died, and I was working out, and people were saying, you need to relax, you need to do yoga, and it'll help. And it's like, no, I needed to go box. And there was no other exercise like that. And I met a group of people, and we text each other on a regular basis to this day. My favorite holiday is Thanksgiving. And I love it because it brings our family together, and the only shopping I do is for food, and being able to cook and bring the kids together. And we always celebrate it at the beach. I grew up on the beach, and so we go down to the Outer Banks of North Carolina and we rent a cottage and just have a lovely holiday there. And then after eating a ton, we all go for a walk on the beach. And I do primary data collection, so I've collected data through interviews with thousands of cancer patients, survivors. And when I go in to present the data and my findings, and I talk about work and employment and that intersection and what happens, every single time I get so many comments from so many survivors and patients who have heard this, or other scientists who will come up to me and say, nobody asked me those questions. And that was the most important thing. That was the thing I worried about. Second to my cancer, I worried about whether I was going to be able to pay for the treatments. Could I go back to work? And many times people also insured their children. And so they were worried about being able to keep their job for that reason as well. And I had so much affirmation about the importance of this line of work. So that I keep that in mind all the time. I think finding a really good role model, and I've had many of them, and I think just learning and watching how people solve problems and think through and build those teams, because leadership is a team sport, and we really have to learn how to take advice, how to give advice, how to get people who, for reasons you can't understand, seem to set each other off in a room, and work with them to talk it through and to share goals. And I think in general, people want to work together. They want to feel that they're doing something really meaningful. And a lot of times the leader's responsibility is getting them on the same page, pointing them in the right direction, and removing barriers. And you need role models to show you how to do that. But once you do your very first grant application and get funded, you're basically a small business at that point. You have to hire a team. You're within a university, but you're paying it out of your grant budget. So you're doing budgeting, management, you have a research assistant, you have people that you're supervising. So you're almost instantly a leader. So there's a lot of things that you just start learning, that even though you may not have thought you were going to be a leader, you end up in those situations and you learn each time. And then the desire to set bigger goals starts to set in and you get more comfortable with it and keep going. A lot of women come to me for mentorship, and I always provide that. I set up a scholarship fund at the end of last year to give preference to first-generation students, especially those interested in policy. So I'm always open and welcome to that, but I feel like everyone needs mentorship.